The days after the battle at Ryan 4 were the strangest the galaxy had ever known. Nobody knew what to feel. The footage played everywhere, in council chambers, in bars, in schools, in homes on 1,000 different worlds. Species that had never agreed on anything suddenly agreed on one thing. The humans were back, and they were something the galaxy had never seen before. Not just powerful, not just advanced, something else. Something that did not have a word yet. At Bright Hall, the council chamber was packed tighter than it had ever been. Every species had sent their highest-ranking leaders. Some had sent their actual rulers, kings, queens, prime speakers, elder councils. The room was so full that many delegates had to stand along the walls. The air smelled of 100 different perfumes, each from a different world, and the noise was like a storm. Admiral Soha stood at the center of the chamber, waiting for quiet. It took a long time. When it finally came, she spoke. The Council has received a formal request from the human envoy, HFY, to address this assembly. He wishes to explain humanity's intentions regarding their return to the galaxy. I have granted this request. I ask that all representatives listen with respect. There were murmurs, but no objections. Nobody wanted to be the one who disrespected the people who had just taken apart an entire war fleet in 2 minutes. HFY entered through the main doors, walking alone. He wore the same simple dark clothes. He carried nothing. He looked small in the enormous chamber, surrounded by hundreds of alien faces, some friendly, some hostile, most simply afraid. He reached the center of the room and stood there for a moment, looking around at the faces. He seemed to be studying them, reading them, understanding things about each person that they might not even understand about themselves. Then he spoke. "Thank you for hearing me," he began. His voice was calm and clear, and it carried easily to every corner of the room without any amplification. "I know you are afraid. I know many of you watched what happened at Ryan 4 and felt not just relief, but terror. I understand that. If I were in your position, I would feel the same." He paused, letting the words settle. "You are right to be cautious. What Unji did at Ryan 4 was the smallest fraction of what humanity is capable of. If I told you the full extent of our abilities, it would not comfort you. It would not make you feel safe. So I will not pretend that you should feel safe. Instead, I will tell you the truth." The chamber was perfectly silent. Every eye was on him. When Earth disappeared 1,000 years ago, we were not destroyed. We were taken to a place that exists outside the universe you know. A place of pure emptiness, where nothing existed except what we brought with us. For the first 100 years, we nearly died. We fought each other. We starved. We lost hope. Millions of people gave up and let themselves fade away. Jisok's voice was steady, but there was weight in it now. The weight of memory. But some of us held on. Some of us refused to stop. We began to study the emptiness around us, and we discovered that it was not truly empty. It was full of things we had never been able to see before. Patterns, energies, structures that existed beneath the surface of reality itself. We learned to understand them. We learned to use them. And slowly, over hundreds of years, we changed. Our bodies became stronger. Our minds became faster. We learned to feel energy the way you feel temperature or sound. We learned to move through space without ships, to reshape matter with our thoughts, to communicate across distances that would take your fastest signals years to cross. We learned things about the nature of the universe that I do not have the words to explain to you, not because you are stupid, but because no language that currently exists can hold these ideas. He looked around the room again. But here is what matters most. In all those years, in all that suffering and learning and growing, the most important thing we discovered was not power. It was not technology. It was not how to take apart warships or create energy barriers. He took a breath. It was humility. Several delegates shifted in their seats. The words seemed to surprise them. "We spent 1,000 years alone," Jisok said. "Completely alone. No other species, no other voices, just us in the dark, trying to survive. And in that loneliness, we learned something that we had never understood when we were part of the galaxy. We learned how precious other life is, how rare, how beautiful." His voice softened. "When we were young, we were exactly what you remember. Loud, aggressive, reckless. We fought wars over things that did not matter. We hurt each other and hurt others without thinking. We were a species that had incredible potential, but very little wisdom. 1,000 years of silence taught us wisdom. It taught us that the universe is very large and very old, and that the greatest crime any species can commit is to use its power to take away the freedom of another. We learned this the hard way. We learned it in the dark, and we will never forget it." Jisok stepped forward. "I am not here to offer you an alliance. I am not here to ask for territory or resources or a seat on your council. Humanity does not need any of these things. We have everything we need." "Then, what do you want?" The question came from the Varrock representative, his voice harsh and suspicious. Jisek looked at him. There was no anger in his eyes, only understanding. "We want to help," he said. "That is all. We spent 1,000 years learning that the greatest use of power is to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Not to rule them, not to control them, just to stand beside them and make sure they are safe." He turned slowly, addressing the entire chamber. "There are threats in this galaxy that your fleets cannot handle. The Iron Reach is only one of them. There are things in deep space, old things, dangerous things, that are moving closer to your worlds every year. You do not know about them yet, but you will. When those threats come, humanity will be there, not as your masters, not as your rulers, as your shield. And if we say no?" Her voice was quiet, but firm. Jisok looked at her. "Then we will respect your decision. We will return to Earth and close the barrier. You will not see us again unless you ask. We will not force our help on anyone. That is not who we are anymore." Soha studied his face. She had spent her entire career reading people, understanding their motives, seeing through their lies. She looked at Jisok, and she saw only one thing. He was telling the truth. The chamber was quiet for a long time. Then slowly, something happened that no one expected. The governor of Rion 4, who had been given a seat at the back of the chamber as an observer, stood up. She was still wearing the same clothes from the day of the attack. There was still ash on her collar. She walked down the central aisle, past hundreds of the most powerful beings in the galaxy, until she stood in front of Jisok. "You saved my people," she said. 2 million lives. You could have let us burn, but you did not." She paused. "I do not understand your power. I do not understand where you have been. But I understand kindness. And what you did for Rion 4 was kind." She reached out and took his hand. "On behalf of my world, I accept your offer. Stand with us." The silence broke. Voices erupted, some cheering, some arguing, some simply crying. But the dam had broken. One by one, delegates began to stand. Some fast, some slow. Some with joy, some with reluctance. But they stood. The Doyen ambassador stood, then representatives from a dozen smaller species. Then grudgingly, with a clicking of jaws that sounded almost like respect, the Varrock stood too. Soha was the last. She stood slowly, feeling the weight of 1,000 years of history pressing down on her shoulders. She looked at Jisok, who was holding the governor's hand, his eyes bright with something that looked like tears. "Teho warned us you would come back," Soha said. "He said the galaxy would not be ready." Jisok smiled. Was he right? Soha said, but I think that is exactly the point. She extended her hand, just as she had done in the docking bay weeks ago. Jisok took it. Welcome home, Soha said, for good this time. Jisok nodded. For good. Outside the great windows of Bright Hall, the stars burned in the darkness, the same as they had always been. But something was different now. Something had shifted in the fabric of the galaxy, subtle but permanent, like the turning of a very large wheel. Humanity had been lost for 1,000 years. They had gone into the dark. They had suffered. And they had come back, not with anger, not with vengeance, but with open hands and quiet voices, and power that could reshape the stars themselves. The galaxy was not ready. But humanity was. And for the first time in 1,000 years, the universe felt a little less cold. 3 weeks after Jisok's arrival at Bright Hall, the galaxy was still arguing about what to do with the humans. Every council meeting ended in shouting. Every diplomatic channel was jammed with messages of fear, curiosity, anger, and hope. Some species wanted to form an alliance with Earth immediately. Others wanted to declare the humans a threat and prepare for war. A few simply pretended nothing had changed and refused to talk about it at all. Jisok stayed at Bright Hall during all of this. He attended meetings when invited. He answered questions with patience. He ate the food that was offered to him, complimented it sincerely, and never once raised his voice or showed frustration. He slept in the small guest quarters they gave him and took walks through the station's gardens, nodding politely to everyone he passed. The guards assigned to watch him reported the same thing every day. He did nothing unusual. He was, by all accounts, the most pleasant and boring guest Bright Hall had ever hosted. That was what made everyone so nervous. It was during the 4th week that everything changed. The message came in the middle of the night, station time, an emergency signal broadcast on every Union frequency from a colony world called Rion 4. It was a farming colony, home to nearly 2 million people from 3 different species. It was quiet, peaceful, and completely defenseless. The Iron Reach had attacked it. The Iron Reach was not a species. It was an empire, a collection of warlike civilizations from the outer rim of the galaxy that had been raiding Union territory for decades. They were brutal, efficient, and completely without mercy. They used massive warships covered in thick black armor that could absorb almost any weapon the Union threw at them. They did not negotiate. They simply took what they wanted and burned everything else. Admiral Soha received the distress call in her quarters. She was dressed and in the command center within 4 minutes. The images coming from Rion 4 were terrible. The sky above the colony was filled with Iron Reach ships, at least 40 of them, their dark hulls blocking out the stars. Buildings were burning. People were running. The colony's small defense force had been destroyed in the first 10 minutes. "How long until our nearest fleet can reach them?" Soha asked. 14 hours, Admiral, her officer replied. "The 7th Fleet is the closest, but they are on the other side of the sector." 14 hours. Soha closed her eyes. In 14 hours, Rion 4 would not exist anymore. 2 million people would be dead or taken, and there was nothing she could do about it. "Admiral?" The voice came from behind her. She turned and saw Jisok standing in the doorway of the command center. He was wearing the same simple dark clothes he always wore. His face was calm, but his eyes were different. There was something sharp in them now, something that had not been there before. "How did you get in here?" Soha demanded. "This was a restricted area." "I walked," Jisok said simply. "Your doors opened for me. I think your security systems do not know how to stop me. I am sorry about that. But I heard the distress call, and I wanted to offer help." Soha stared at him. "Help? My people have a ship nearby, a single vessel. Its captain is a woman named Unji. She is very good at what she does. If you give us permission, she can be at Rion 4 in minutes." "Minutes?" Soha repeated. Rion 4 is 6 light-years away. Yes, Jisok said. Minutes. Soha looked at the screens, showing Rion 4 burning. She looked at the clock, counting down the 14 hours her fleet would need. She looked at Jisok's calm, steady face. She made her decision in 3 seconds. Go, she said. Jisok nodded. He touched his temple with 2 fingers, as if pressing something invisible, and spoke quietly. Unji, you are needed. Rion 4, Iron Reach, 40 ships, protect the colony. Then he lowered his hand and looked at Soha. She is on her way. May I stay here and watch with you? Soha could only nod. On the screens, nothing changed for exactly 47 seconds. The Iron Reach ships continued their attack. Fires burned. People screamed. Then a light appeared. It came from nowhere, a single point of brilliant white that expanded into the shape of a ship. It was small, much smaller than the Iron Reach warships. It was sleek and white, shaped like a long curved blade, and it glowed with the same golden energy that surrounded Earth. 1 ship against 40. The Iron Reach noticed it immediately. 10 ships broke away and turned toward the human vessel, weapons charging, ready to destroy this tiny intruder. They never got the chance. Unji moved first. The human ship did not fire weapons in any way that the Union understood. There were no missiles, no energy beams, no projectiles. Instead, the ship simply moved. It passed through the first Iron Reach warship like it was not there. And as it passed through, the warship came apart. Not in an explosion, not in fire. It simply separated into pieces, cleanly and quietly, like a puzzle being taken apart by invisible hands. One moment, it was a massive warship. The next moment, it was a cloud of harmless metal fragments, drifting slowly in space. The command center at Bright Hall went silent. Unji's ship turned. It moved toward the second warship. The same thing happened. Then the third, then the fourth. Each time, the Iron Reach ship simply came apart, dissolved, reduced to nothing. No destruction, just quiet, absolute disassembly. The remaining Iron Reach ships tried to run. They turned their engines to full power and fled in every direction, their black hulls straining against the emptiness of space. It did not matter. Yunji's ship was everywhere at once. It moved in ways that broke every law of physics the Union knew. It appeared next to one fleeing warship, touched it gently, and the ship stopped. Its engines died. Its weapons powered down. It hung in space, completely disabled, but otherwise unharmed. Then the human ship was somewhere else, doing the same thing to another warship, and another, and another. In exactly 2 minutes and 11 seconds, it was over. 40 Iron Reach warships, the most feared military force on the Outer Rim. An armada that could have destroyed any fleet the Union possessed, defeated by one ship, in 2 minutes. Officers stared at their screens with open mouths. Some had tears in their eyes. Some looked like they might be sick. One officer had dropped his datapad and not noticed. Soha turned to Jisiok. He was watching the screen with a peaceful expression, as if he had just watched a sunset. She was gentle, Jisiok said quietly. She only disabled the ships that tried to run. She did not kill anyone. She did not kill anyone, Soha repeated, her voice hollow. No, Ingji does not like killing. None of us do anymore. The ships that were disassembled were empty sections. She moved the crews to safety first. They are floating in escape pods now. Your fleet can pick them up when they arrive. Soha sat down. She needed to sit down. Her legs were not working properly. You moved the crews, she said. You moved thousands of enemy soldiers out of their own ships and into escape pods, while simultaneously destroying or disabling 40 warships in 2 minutes. 2 minutes and 11 seconds, Jisok corrected politely. Unji was being careful because of the colony below. She did not want any debris to fall on the surface. A message came through from Rion 4. The colony's governor was on the screen, a middle-aged woman with ash on her face and tears running down her cheeks. "The attack has stopped," she said, her voice breaking. "The sky is clear. Whoever sent that ship, whoever you are, thank you. You saved us. You saved all of us." Jisok stepped forward so the governor could see him. "My name is Jisok. I am from Earth. We are glad you are safe." The governor stared at him. "Earth? But Earth has been gone for 1,000 years. Yes, we came back, and we are here to help." The broadcast went out across every channel in the galaxy. Within hours, every living being in the Union had seen the footage. One human ship against 40 Iron Reach warships. 2 minutes and 11 seconds. No casualties. The galaxy had spent 1,000 years forgetting about humanity. Now, it would never forget again. That night, Soha sat alone in her office, the lights dimmed, the footage playing on a loop on her screen. She watched Unji's ship move through the Iron Reach fleet like a bird flying through clouds. She watched warships come apart like they were made of sand. She watched the most powerful weapons in the galaxy fail to even slow the human vessel down. And she thought about Teho's warning, written 1,000 years ago, now burning in her mind like a fire that would never go out. They will come back, and when they do, the galaxy will not be ready. He had been right. The galaxy was not ready. Not even close. But for the first time since Earth's return, Soha felt something she had not expected. Not fear. Relief. Because if the humans were this powerful, and they had still chosen to come in peace, then maybe, just maybe, the galaxy was in better hands than it had ever been before. The day the human envoy arrived at Bright Hall was the most tense day the Galactic Union had seen in 300 years. Every corridor was full. Every docking bay was watched. Soldiers from 12 different species lined the hallways in their best armor, their weapons polished, but their hands nervous. Diplomats whispered behind closed doors. Reporters crowded every available screen and balcony, their cameras pointed at the main entrance to the Great Council Chamber. Admiral Soha stood at the front of the chamber, her back straight and her face carefully calm. She had spent the last 3 days preparing for this moment. She had read every file the Union had on humanity. She had studied their old language, their old customs, their old wars. She had tried to understand what kind of people they had been before they disappeared. But none of that could prepare her for what they might have become. One moment, the space outside Bright Hall was empty. The next moment, there was a vessel floating there, perfectly still, as if it had always been in that spot. It was small, no bigger than a personal shuttle. It was white, smooth, and simple. It had no visible weapons, no shields, no engines. It looked like a drop of milk floating in the darkness of space. Every sensor on Bright Hall tried to scan it. Every sensor failed. A docking request came through, polite and patient. The Union granted it immediately. Nobody wanted to keep the humans waiting. The ship landed in the central bay. The doors of the bay were sealed, and only a small group was allowed inside to greet the visitor. Soha was there. So were representatives from the 5 most powerful species in the Union. So were armed guards, standing at a respectful distance, trying very hard to look professional instead of terrified. The ship's door opened with a soft sound, like a breath. A man stepped out. He was human. That much was clear. He was of medium height, with black hair cut short, and a face that looked young, but carried the expression of someone much older. He wore simple clothes, dark fabric, no armor, no symbols, no decorations of any kind. He carried nothing in his hands. He looked around the docking bay with dark, calm eyes. Then he smiled. "My name is Jisok," he said. His voice was warm and quiet, the kind of voice that made you want to lean closer to hear it. "Thank you for receiving me. I know this must be strange for all of you." Soha stepped forward. She had practiced this moment in front of a mirror, rehearsing her words, keeping her voice steady. But standing in front of this man, she felt something she had not expected. Not fear, exactly. Something deeper. Something older. Like standing at the edge of a very high cliff and looking down. "Welcome to Bright Hall," she said. "The Galactic Union greets you. We have many questions." Ji-Seok nodded. "I expect you do. I will answer all of them. But first, may I say something?" Soha hesitated, then nodded. Ji-Seok looked at each of the representatives in turn, meeting their eyes one by one. The Varrock representative flinched. The Doyen ambassador straightened. A small, fur-covered delegate from a minor species simply stared. "We did not leave by choice," Ji-Seok said. 1,000 years ago something happened to our planet. Something that we did not cause and did not expect. We were taken, pulled out of this universe and into a space between spaces. A place with no stars, no light, no time as you understand it. We spent 1,000 years there, alone, with nothing but ourselves and the silence. The docking bay was so quiet that Soha could hear her own heartbeat. In that place, Ji-Seok continued, we had to change. We had to grow. Not just our technology, but ourselves, our minds, our bodies, our understanding of what is real and what is possible. It was not easy. Many generations suffered. Many people were lost. But we survived. And we learned things that I cannot fully explain with words. What kind of things? Soha asked. Ji-Seok considered the question carefully. Imagine that everything you know about the universe is a single page in a very large book. We have read more of that book than we ever thought possible. We understand energy, matter, space, and time in ways that go far beyond what any species in this galaxy has achieved. We can do things that will seem impossible to you. But I want to be clear. We did not come back to frighten anyone. The Varrock representative clicked his jaws. Then, why did you come back? Because this is our home, Ji-Seok said simply. The galaxy is where we began. We wanted to see it again. We wanted to see if our old friends were still here. Friends? The Varrock's voice was sharp. Humanity had very few friends when you disappeared. Most species thought you were loud, aggressive, and reckless. Ji-Seok smiled at that. It was a real smile, full of warmth. Yes, we were all of those things. We still are in some ways, but 1,000 years changes a people. We are quieter now. We have learned patience. Patience, Soha repeated. You spent 1,000 years in some kind of void, and you learned patience. Among other things. Soha studied him. He looked ordinary. He looked like the kind of man you might pass on a street without noticing. But there was something behind his eyes. A depth, a stillness, like looking into deep water and knowing that the bottom was very, very far away. What kind of technology did you develop? She asked. Our sensors cannot read your ship. They cannot read you. You appeared at our station without any detectable method of travel. The energy barrier around your planet is producing more power than we can measure. The Union needs to understand what we are dealing with. Ji-Seok nodded slowly. I understand your concern. Let me show you something small. He held out his hand, palm up. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a tiny light appeared above his palm. It was blue, like a small star, and it floated there, spinning slowly. It was beautiful. This, Ji-Seok said, is a contained point of energy. It is very small, but it holds more power than your entire station's reactor. The room went cold. Every guard in the bay tightened their grip on their weapons. Soha did not move. That is in your hand, she said. Yes. And you can create these at will. Yes. Soha took a slow breath. And the energy barrier around Earth? That is made of the same kind of energy, Ji-Seok said, but much, much larger. The silence that followed was the heaviest thing in the room. The Doyen ambassador was the first to speak. His silver face was unreadable, but his voice was tight. You are telling us that a single human can hold more power than our greatest technology can produce. What happens when all of humanity works together? Jisoo closed his hand, and the light vanished. That is a good question, he said. And the honest answer is that I do not think you want to know. Not because it is dangerous, but because the numbers would not mean anything to you. It would be like explaining the ocean to someone who has only ever seen a cup of water. Nobody spoke. Jisoo looked at Soha. I did not come here to threaten anyone. I came here to talk. Humanity wants peace. We want to rejoin the galaxy, not as conquerors, but as neighbors. We have been alone for a very long time, and we are tired of silence. Soha looked at him for a long moment. Then she did something that surprised everyone in the room, including herself. She extended her hand. Jisoo looked at it. Then he smiled again, that warm, real smile, and took it. Welcome back to the galaxy, Soha said quietly. Thank you, Jisoo replied. It is good to be home. But even as she shook his hand, Soha could not stop thinking about that tiny blue light. The power of an entire station sitting in the palm of one man's hand, controlled as easily as breathing. The humans said they wanted peace. She believed them, but she also understood something that she would never say out loud to anyone. It did not matter whether the galaxy accepted humanity's return or not. It did not matter whether the Union said yes or no. The humans had come back with power that made every fleet, every weapon, every empire in the galaxy look like toys made of paper. If the humans wanted peace, there would be peace. If they wanted anything else, there was not a single force in existence that could stop them. And that, Soha thought as she released Jisoo's hand, was the most terrifying kind of peace there was. The alarm came at the worst possible time. Yuna was halfway through a cold cup of tea, sitting alone in the cockpit of her small scout ship, reading a book she had already read 3 times. She was bored. She had been bored for weeks. Her mission was simple and dull. Patrol the far edges of Galactic Union space, scan for unusual signals, and report anything strange. In 6 months, she had found nothing. No pirates, no anomalies, no excitement of any kind. She was starting to think the Union had sent her out here as punishment. Then, the alarm went off. It was not the normal kind of alarm, not the soft beep that meant a passing asteroid, or the sharp tone that warned about radiation storms. This was something Yuna had never heard before, a deep, heavy sound that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Her entire ship shook, the lights flickered, her tea slid off the table and crashed on the floor. Yuna jumped to her feet and grabbed the control panel. Her fingers moved fast, pulling up data, scanning every direction. Her heart was beating hard, but her hands were steady. She was trained for this. "What is it?" she said out loud, even though nobody was there to answer. The answer came on her screen a moment later, and it made no sense. A massive energy signature had appeared in Sector 7G. It was enormous, bigger than anything Yuna had ever seen in her career, bigger than anything in the Union's records. It filled her screen with light and numbers that her computer could not even process properly. Half the readings came back as errors. The other half came back as impossible. Yuna stared at the screen for a long time. Then she looked out the window of her cockpit, toward the direction the signal was coming from. She could see nothing but stars. But she knew, deep in her bones, that something was there. She activated her long-range communicator and sent a message back to Bright Hall, the Union Central Station. "This is Scout Yuna, assigned to Outer Patrol Grid 12. I am detecting a massive energy signature in Sector 7G. The readings are beyond anything in our database. Requesting instructions." The response came 20 minutes later, from a voice she recognized. It was Admiral Soha, one of the highest-ranking officers in the Union fleet. Soha was known for being calm and careful. She never raised her voice. She never made quick decisions. But when she spoke now, there was something in her tone that Yuna had never heard before. Scout Yuna, we are seeing the same readings from here. Every sensor station in the quadrant is picking it up. We do not know what it is. You are the closest ship. I need you to go there and tell us what you see. Do not approach closer than safe scanning distance. Just look and report. Yuna swallowed hard. Understood, Admiral. She turned her ship towards Sector 7G and pushed the engines to full speed. It took her 14 hours to reach the area. During that time, the energy signature only grew stronger. Her instruments screamed warnings at her. Her shields activated on their own, something they were only supposed to do in combat. The temperature inside her ship dropped, then rose, then dropped again. Strange patterns appeared on her sensors. Patterns that looked almost like music, like a song being played on a scale she could not hear. When she finally arrived, she cut her engines and drifted forward slowly, her eyes wide, her breath caught in her throat. There, floating in space, surrounded by a shell of golden light so bright it hurt to look at, was a planet. Not just any planet. It was blue. Deep, beautiful blue, with swirls of white cloud and patches of green and brown. It was round and perfect, like a jewel placed carefully in the darkness of space. Yuna knew what it was. Every child in the galaxy had seen pictures of it in their history books. Every school taught about it. Every museum had a model of it somewhere in a dusty corner. It was Earth. Her hands were shaking. Her whole body was shaking. She opened her communicator, and when she spoke, her voice cracked. Admiral Soha, this is Scout Yuna. I have visual confirmation of the energy source in Sector 7G. She paused. She could barely get the words out. It is Earth. The planet Earth. It is here. It is back. There was silence on the other end. A long, heavy silence that seemed to last forever. Then Soha's voice came through, and for the first time in anyone's memory, it was not calm. Repeat that. The planet Earth has returned. Within hours, the news spread across the galaxy like fire. Every news channel, every communication network, every whisper in every bar on every station carried the same impossible words. Earth was back. The reaction was chaos. Some species celebrated. Some panicked. Some refused to believe it. Old alliances cracked as leaders argued about what to do. The Varrock, who had claimed Earth's old territory, demanded that the planet be quarantined. The Doyen insisted on sending a diplomatic fleet. Smaller species hid and waited, afraid of what was coming. At Bright Hall, Admiral Soha stood before the same council chamber where Tejo had spoken 1,000 years ago. The room was full, every seat taken, the air thick with fear and excitement. We have confirmed Scout Yuna's report, Soha said. Her voice was steady again, but her eyes were not. Earth has reappeared in its original location. It is surrounded by an energy barrier that we cannot penetrate or identify. Our scans cannot pass through it. We do not know what is on the surface. We do not know if anyone is alive down there. Then how do we know it is truly Earth? Asked a Varrock representative, his insect-like eyes narrowing. Because we matched its size, composition, and orbital position to our historical records, Soha replied. It is Earth. There is no doubt. What about the energy barrier? Asked another voice. Soha hesitated. This was the part that frightened her the most. The barrier is producing energy readings that exceed anything we have ever measured. Our best scientists estimate that the barrier alone is generating more power than every star in the nearest 50 systems combined. We have no technology that can do this. We have no theory that can explain this. The room went quiet. 50 systems. That was not just powerful. That was something else entirely. What do we do? Someone asked. Soha looked out at the faces before her, hundreds of them, from dozens of species, all looking at her for answers she did not have. "We wait," she said, "and we hope that whatever the humans have become, they still remember us." Back at Sector 7G, Yuna was still floating near the barrier. She had turned off most of her instruments because they were overloading. She sat in the quiet of her cockpit, looking at the glowing planet through her window. She had been watching for hours when something changed. A small section of the barrier opened, just for a moment. A thin beam of light shot out from the planet's surface and touched her ship. It was warm. It did not hurt. It felt like sunlight on a spring morning. Then a voice came through her communicator. A human voice. It was deep and kind, and it spoke in perfect Union Common, without any accent. "Hello, Yuna. Thank you for finding us. Please do not be afraid. We have been away for a long time, and we have much to share. Tell your leaders that we are sending someone to speak with them. His name is Jisok. He will explain everything." The voice stopped. The barrier closed again. Yuna sat in her chair, tears running down her face, though she did not know why. She reached for her communicator with a trembling hand. "Admiral," she whispered, "they are alive. The humans are alive, and they know my name." Nobody remembered exactly how it happened. The stories changed depending on who told them. Some said there was a flash of white light so bright that it burned across every telescope in the galaxy. Others said there was no light at all, just silence. One moment, the small blue planet was there, spinning quietly in its corner of the Milky Way. The next moment, it was gone. Earth had vanished. The news spread fast. Every species, every empire, every small colony on the edge of known space heard about it within days. The humans were gone. Their planet, their moon, their entire solar system, all of it, had disappeared like smoke in the wind. At first, nobody believed it. Commander Tejo of the Galactic Union stood in front of the great council chamber on the station called Bright Hall. He was tall and serious, with deep lines on his face from years of difficult decisions. He looked at the hundreds of alien representatives sitting before him and spoke in a calm voice. "We have confirmed it," he said. "The Sol system no longer exists. All attempts to reach it have failed. There is nothing there. Not even empty space. Just nothing." The chamber erupted. Voices shouted over each other. Some demanded answers. Some demanded action. Some simply sat in shock. Tejo raised his hand for silence. It took a long time to come. "We do not know what caused this," he continued. "We do not know if the humans are alive or dead. But as of this moment, humanity is officially listed as a lost civilization." Those words echoed across the galaxy. A lost civilization. It was a cold term, used for species that had died out or disappeared long before anyone could record their history. But humans were not ancient. They had been part of the Galactic Union for only 200 years. They were young and loud and full of energy. They built things. They argued. They laughed too much. They were strange, but they were real. And now they were gone. In the weeks that followed, the Union sent dozens of ships to the place where Earth had been. Every single one reported the same thing. There was nothing. No debris. No radiation, no black hole, no sign of war or explosion. The space where the Sol system once existed was perfectly empty, as if it had never been there at all. Scientists could not explain it. Military leaders could not explain it. Philosophers tried, but their answers were vague and unsatisfying. Some said the humans had destroyed themselves with one of their many dangerous experiments. Others whispered that something from deep space had taken them, something old and hungry that nobody wanted to think about. Tejo did not believe any of it. He had known humans. He had worked with them. He had shared meals with a human diplomat named Minho, who once told him that humans were too stubborn to die quietly. Minho had laughed when he said it. Taeho could still hear that laugh, even now. But Minho was gone, and stubbornness could not explain an entire solar system disappearing overnight. As the years passed, the galaxy moved on. It had to. There were trade routes to manage, borders to protect, and old rivalries to settle. The humans had left behind colonies on a few distant planets. But without Earth, without their home, those colonies slowly faded. Some were absorbed into other empires. Some simply went dark. The Union divided Earth's old territories among the major species. The insect-like Varrock claimed the outer regions. The tall, silver-skinned Doyen took the trade lanes. Smaller species picked at whatever was left, like birds eating crumbs from a table. Nobody fought over it. That was the strange thing. When any other species disappeared, there was always war over what they left behind. But not this time. There was something uncomfortable about claiming the territory of a species that had vanished so completely. It felt wrong, like moving into a house where the previous family had simply walked out and never come back. Still, time had a way of making everything normal. 100 years passed, then 200, then 500. The name Earth became a word in old history books. Children learned about it the way they learned about other extinct species, with polite interest and no real feeling. Humans became a story, a strange little species from a strange little planet that had burned too bright and disappeared too fast. Taeho had long since died, of course, but his warnings lived on in the Union's records. In his final report, written when he was very old and very tired, he had written something that later historians found both strange and disturbing. "Do not assume they are dead," he had written. "I have learned many things in my long life, but the most important lesson came from the humans themselves. They told me, more than once, that they were never more dangerous than when the universe believed they were finished. I do not know where they have gone, but I believe with every part of my old heart that they will come back. And when they do, the galaxy will not be ready." Most people who read those words smiled and shook their heads. Taeho had been a great leader, but perhaps his mind had softened near the end. The humans were gone. That was simply how things were. By the time 1,000 years had passed, Earth was barely a memory. The Galactic Union had grown vast and powerful. New species had risen. Old species had fallen. Wars had been fought and forgotten. The galaxy was busy and full and loud, just as it had always been. And somewhere in the deepest part of the Union's old star charts, in a corner of space that nobody visited anymore, there was a small mark where the Sol system had once been. Most navigators did not even notice it. Those who did simply flew past. Nobody looked at that empty patch of space anymore. Nobody sent ships. Nobody wondered. That was their first mistake. Because in the 1,000 years since Earth had vanished, the galaxy had become comfortable. It had become sure of itself. The great empires believed they understood how the universe worked. They believed they had seen everything there was to see. They had not. Deep in that empty space, in the exact spot where Earth had once been, something was beginning to change. It was small at first, just a tiny ripple in the fabric of space, so faint that no sensor in the galaxy could detect it. And it was growing. Something was coming back. The light started slowly, like the first rays of a sunrise on a world that had been dark for a very long time. It was soft and golden and warm, and it pulsed like a heartbeat. And if anyone had been close enough to hear it, truly hear it, they would have heard something impossible. A sound that had not been heard in the galaxy for 1,000 years. Laughter. Human laughter. The humans were not dead. They had never been dead, and they were coming home.